Hello and welcome to our sixth session on this modeling tools, and in this session we are going to explore about pattern, which is nothing but arrays that we were using it in our conventional modeling tools like 3ds Max and Maya. If you are continuing from the previous session, you can open that project directly and starting it, or if you are starting fresh, you can start with a fresh project, and some of the resources that we developed in our previous session has been provided to you in a link. If you come into your video description or in your LMS description, if you come down, you have this Patreon link. Click on this link. So, in this Patreon page, move down and you have here content for Patreon session.zip. You have this file. Just click on this file and download it. So, I have the downloaded file here. Right click and just extract this file. So, when you extract this file, you have one folder called as maps. Now, come into Epic Games Launcher, double click to open this. Now, in Unreal Engine library, you can start with a new project. So, here I am going to click on this launch button to launch Unreal Engine 5.6. I will come into film video, choose blank, and I will give this a name, my array practice. And in your Unreal projects or in your project folder, click create. Now, once the project is open, if it asks for any update, click update, and this new plugins are available. You can just dismiss this, and you come into the content drawer, and on the content, if you right click, click on show in explorer. This will open in your file explorer. So, come to the folder where you downloaded your zip file, and in that we had this content for pattern session, and inside that you had this map folder. Just cut or copy this from here and paste it into your project content folder. Then you can now see here the maps folder here. If you are not going to see this, restart Unreal Engine and open the project again. Now, if you open maps, in this you have this modeling underscore practice, which we had done in our previous session. You can just double click to open this. I have to come here into the modeling section, and here I am coming to XForm. I am going to come over here, and you have this two head arrows. I select this two head arrows and press F. I am zoomed to this. I will right click and I will just zoom in. So, now I will just press D. I will roll the mouse down to reduce the camera speed, and then press Q and move it. So, I have one arrow. We created this in our previous session, a double headed arrow, and now this arrow what you are seeing in the scene is an instance. Instance means this original model of this is present in our content drawer generated in Satvik. You can see these two head arrows. If I double click this, this will open in a static mesh window. So, this was the model which we had created, and when we drag this model and place it on our scene, an instance of this model will be added here. In our previous session, we created east arrow, south arrow, west arrow and north arrow. These four, although it shows here as instance, is actually not stored on the hard disk, but all these four are stored in your map. You can see the symbol difference. This indicates that it is a dynamic mesh and this is a static mesh. Now, the next feature we are going to explore here is the pattern. As soon as I click on this pattern, you can immediately see that a seed number is generated. See, this seed number you need not worry about it as of now, because this is related to something to the blueprint. So, we are going to discuss this later when we come into coding and programming. So, as of now, if you see, one arrow is divided into 10 arrows and it is placed in a sequence. Now, here the first feature we have here is, if you come down, you have shapes here, and in the shape we have chosen line. This has created 10 copies of my double headed arrow, 1000 extent. It has, because every model it has moved 10 places, and the total length of this is called as the extent, this red mark you are seeing. So, if I catch and pull it, see the extent is going to change. So, this 10, I have the 10 copies and I can distribute it over a length. Say for example, I want this 10 to be distributed over 2000 centimeter, then I will just type 2000 and these 10 copies will be distributed in 2000 centimeters. Right now it is happening along the x axis. Means if you come into the front view, press G to hide all the other non-renderable items. If I press F, you can see now it has created array across the x axis. So to see it, I have to come into the right view. So in the right view, I can see all the 10 placed here. If I want this 20 copies, it becomes 20, but it will be placed within this length of 2000 meter. So the first option here I have is by count. I am going to create a specific count of copies of my model and it will be distributed over this extent length. Now the second option I have here is step size. Step size, what it does is, what is the size of this step? So as I decrease the step size, see the gap between these models is going to decrease. Only by controlling the distance between two adjacent instances over a length of this extent, we are controlling this array. See, I can just drag or pull it. If I increase the step here, if I make it 200, you are going to see gaps in between. So this is the second option we have in spacing mode. And the third option is packed. Packed means it will be exactly placed next to each other. Here, I can only extend it over the length. The distance is perfectly packed one next to each other. Show you a case study. I am going to click cancel. Say for example, now in this case I want to create a fencing for a site of mine which is around 40 feet by 60 feet. I will come into create and I am going to create new box now. And I will set its output to dynamic mesh, and 40 feet means approximately around 1200 centimeter, 60 feet means 6 3s are 1800 centimeter, and its thickness is around 1 feet, that is around 30 centimeter. I create this box here. So what I will do is I will come into the perspective view, click here and create the box and click accept here. And I am going to press F2 and I am going to call this ground. I am going to come here and reset its position to 0 0 0. I have to add fencing on all the 4 sides. Now for fencing, I am going to use this 2 head arrow structure as my fencing. First I am going to come into the top view and I am going to select this, drag it and place it somewhere here, and I am going to come into the front view to see this. See, compared to my ground size, this is too large. I am going to scale it 0.2 along all the 3 axes here. So this size is fine. I want this size to be the default size of my fence. As I discussed in the previous session, you can come into Xform here and choose bake transform. When I click on bake transform, this 0.2 will become 1. And I am going to drag this and place it on the top like this on the fence end, and also I am going to come here on the top view and I am going to press F, come to this position, drag it and place it perfectly here. So I will switch off this snapping so that I can now drag and place this precisely. Now I want the fencing all around my ground. So I will come back to perspective view. So now I am going to use this pattern, click on the pattern, and now once I click on the pattern, you can see this pattern created here. See, I can even select it along the x axis and I am going to move this. I will move it and place it at the center so that this is exactly in the center here. Now here my length is 1200. So I can come here and in the extent directly type 1200 and press enter, and now I will come into the top view. My length here is 1800. So I am going to make this 1800 and this is along the x axis, and once I place it along, you can see now precisely it is placed 1800 here, and I will click accept. So now I got one part of fencing ready, and you have one new item added here which is called as pattern underscore 0. Now I am going to press F2 and I am going to call this as fence underscore left. Then I will press Alt and I will just drag it to the right so that the same fencing comes on the right. I have to create one more fence now here. So, for this again I will come down and select these two head arrows, and this time I will place it at the center, and then I will again choose pattern, but this time instead of x axis I am going to use y axis. So, when I use the y axis and the length here is 1200. So, I will set it to 1200, and then I am going to just drag it and place it here, and I am going to click accept. Press F2 and I am going to call this as fence underscore back, and you have fence underscore left. This one I will press F2 and name it as fence underscore right, and I will select this fence back. I will press Alt, drag it and place one more copy here, and I am going to call this, I will press F2 and I will call this as fence underscore front. So easily now I got a fencing all around my ground. I will come into the right view and align it correctly. This one also I will select this, I will right click, move here, and everything I want to align it to the bottom end here. For this alignment we had used in our previous section. I will select fence back, front, left and right, all the four. I will come into align and I am going to align it along the z axis, and everything I want it to be aligned to the first selected. I click accept. Now, if I come into the perspective view, now I have a beautiful fence put all around my ground. My next task is I have to place some chairs here. In our previous session which created a chair, and I want to neatly arrange chairs throughout this hall, so that some around 500 or 200 people can come and sit here. So, to arrange this chair, I will come into the content drawer, and in maps this I have already provided the simple chair completed which we did it in our previous session. I will just now drag this into my scene. So, you can see the chair is added. Come into the front view, I will just drag this and place it on the floor like this, and I will come into the right view, I will just zoom out and I will place it correctly at some position over here, and coming into the perspective view, now I will press F to zoom to the chair, and now I want this chair to be arranged all over my area. So, and the arrangement that I want is I need 5 chairs in one row, and similarly I need 10 rows. Again I am going to use my pattern tool. So, with this simple chair selected, I will come and select the pattern. Instead of using line here now, I will come into the second option which is the grid. So, when I select grid, automatically you can see the entire chair, you have it placed both along the x axis and the y axis. So, here you have grid pattern x, and along the x I need around 5 chairs to be placed. See, along the x axis I need some 10 rows, I want to create 10 rows, and along the y in each row I need 5 chairs, and then the length here, the total length of this site is 1200 centimeter. I want this to be placed in 500 centimeter, and then and also in the length, this is 1800 centimeter, I want this to be placed in 900 centimeter. And now I will just drag this, or I will come into the top view now. I am going to just even at the center. If I come into the perspective view, and if you see it, so easily we created a pattern of chairs, and if I click accept, then immediately you can see a new pattern is created. Press F2 and I am going to call this as chairs underscore grid. That is this simple chairs underscore grid. I will off this. I will just create a box as a dynamic mesh, and I will set its size to something like 50, 50 and 50, and I will click accept. Then I will come into X form, and in pattern I am going to show you. See here, when you use this grid pattern, it can be created either along the XY plane, or if you want a pattern to be created at the back, then I can go to XZ plane. See, now the pattern is created along the X and Z axis, or I can even create it along y and z axis like this. Say I can create a pattern like this, I will move it and place it somewhere here. So, when I am creating this pattern, actually in this pattern you have two options here. One is the x axis, you have 10 rows. So, I can change even here either by count or step size or packed. I have all the three options. In packed, see the boxes are arranged close to each other and now it appears like a large rectangle. Set the width and adjust this width, and also along the pattern y, if I make it packed, this will become pattern wall like this. Or I can choose by count and I can set the values here. Both I will change it to by count and I will make it 10 by say 10, then I have a 10 by 10 pattern and I can just place it here. And if I click accept, now I have a backside pattern like this, and this is what we call it as the grid pattern. And I am going to come here, press F2 and I am going to call this as box underscore grid. I will now take this chair, press F and come close to it. We explored creating the pattern along x and y axis and also as a grid. What if I wanted to place this chair in a circular way, so that say you are playing some musical chair or some event and you want a round table conference and you want the chair to be placed in a circular pattern. I can select this chair, come into pattern, and this time instead of grid I select circle. And when I select the circle, again here I have different planes. Right now it is set to YZ plane. So, if I turn here, press S, move back and show it to you. See, now the chairs are arranged, but it is arranged along the YZ plane. But if I want it on the floor, I have to change this to XY plane. So, when I change it to XY plane, you can see now how the chairs are arranged here. So, now you have the pattern again here. Either you can set it by count and increase the count like this, number of chairs, see, and then or otherwise I can click on step size and change the number of 3, 4, 5. So, like this, changing the step size I can create the chairs like this, or I can go to packed and this is going to create packed chairs placed next to each other. I will press Q and I will move here and show it to you. See, now I have chairs packed all around like this. Now, only thing is the chairs are now outwards. I am going to cancel this. I am going to select my chair. I will now come here, reset its position to 0, 0, 0 and I will just move it along the Z axis and place it just over the floor like this, and then I am going to move it forward like this and I am going to rotate it along the Z axis by around 180 degree. So, this will be the initial position of the chair, and once I set this position, now if I click pattern, see, now you can see all the chairs are placed inward. You have a radius, how much radius this chair has to sit. So, if I come into the top view, you can see the radius of this. I can control this radius, I can click here, drag it and make this radius smaller or bigger like this. If I come into the perspective view, you can see I can change this radius value here to change the radius here. See, I can modify this radius, and when I am using packed, when you are adjusting this, I will press Q here, come closer, and when you are using packed, then I have to set this radius in such a way so that the chairs are precisely placed. See, for a value of 117, you can see all the chairs are precisely placed. Now, I will click accept, and now if I come here, press F2, I am now going to call this as chairs underscore circle. I will come into the top view and place all these items correctly. I will place this chair circle here, then we had created another chairs grid here. This is a box we used earlier. I do not need this, I will delete it. This is the original chair which I will delete it, I do not need it. And then you have these blocks that we created, I will place it to the back. This one I will move it little to the front, and I have a circular chair created here like this. So now I think you are clear about how we can make use of this pattern to create structure like this. So now in our create menu session, previously we had created a stairs. I will come here to dynamic mesh and we had created steps like this, and now I want to create this step using pattern. So I will cancel this. I will come into the box structure and I am going to set its width 90 centimeter, depth will be 30 centimeter which is 1 feet, and height will be 15 centimeter. Now I create a block like this. I will press F and come close to it. I will click accept, and I am now going to press F2 and I am going to call this as stairs pattern. I will come here and choose pattern, and this time when you are using the pattern, right now it is set to line and you are seeing how the pattern is equally placed. I will come into this spacing mode and I am going to select packed, so that they are placed next to each other. I move it to the side here. I will right click, press W and move it over here, and I will show it. Instead of this being a stripe, if I want to make it like a step, if you move down below this linear pattern, you have rotation, translation and scale. You have 3 options here, and in each option you have start rotation, end rotation and jitter, the 3 options. Right now first I will start with the translation. See, in translation, along the z axis, the starting value I will set it to 0, and in end, if I change this value, what happens is, you can now see this is going to move up. See, can you see the steps moving up? So as I increase it, the steps are going to move. If I reset it, you have the packed, I will set its length to around 500 centimeter. You have this placed one to each other along the x axis, and in z and y axis the value remains unchanged. However, if I come over here and in the z axis, if I increase its value say by around 500, now you can see the first one is at 0, the second z value will be 1, 2, 3 like that. Every step between to 0 to 500, the value gets distributed. Now instead of this being 500, I will just drag it and bring it little less here. So I will bring it to approximately half the 500 value, that is 250, and now you can see this appears like a steps. I can set the initial and the end value along the 3 axes. Right now I have set it in the z axis. So these are arranged as a block one above the other like this. Now if I also set the y axis, see what happens is, this is going to move to the side. See, along the y also between 0 and 250 you have the value changing. So like this we can create this kind of step like structure. Instead of linear, I will go into circle, and now when I come into circle, I want this step to be rotated. Cancel this, I come to this stairs pattern, press F. Right now I have only one stair, and if I rotate this along the z axis by 90 degree, and then if I come into the pattern and if I choose this circular pattern, you can see the steps are set. It is going in a circular pattern. See how the steps are going to increase like this. I will reset this star translation values to 0. Here I can adjust the angle like this. So I have the angle. and then I can just reduce this radius a little more so that they come close to each other in this way, and instead of packed I go to count by count, and I am going to just increase this all around like this, and then I am going to add an end translation and I am going to lift this like this. So, when I lift it like this, and then if you see this, see this is going to create a circular step like this, like this. So, these are the kind of patterns that I can create using this. So, I will click accept. So, now I will come into the top view and I am going to drag it and place it at one corner here. I will come into perspective view and I will show it to you. So, if I press F, so this is the pattern that we have created. Another interesting thing that I want to show here is, say for example, we had created this fence. I am going to delete it. I will scroll down here, select the two head arrows, and I am going to create another pattern now. So, I will select it, come into the pattern, and this time here I will reset everything so that it is in linear and it is along the y axis. I have set it to linear y axis, and its length I will set it to 1200. Then I am going to move this pattern to back here like this, and now in this case of pattern, so I will right click and I will move it here. If I come over here and you have another option here, start rotation and end rotation. So, if I come to end rotation, and now along the x axis if I change the rotation, you can see that if I set this rotation to 90 degree, see now what happens is, initially this is straight, but as the pattern comes to an end, it is going to bend by 90 degree along the x axis, or I will set this to 0, and if I set this to 90 degree, you can now see this is rotating along the y axis. Now, here what I will do is, along the y axis initial angle I will set it to around 20 degree, and end angle I will set it to around minus 20 degree. Now, when I set it to 20 and minus 20 degree, and you can see here that the pattern is, it is slightly bent like this. You can see how the fence is appearing bent, and you can also add an amount of jitter here. So, when I add the jitter, there will be some kind of ununiformity. I will reduce this angle say by around 10 degree, this will be minus 10 degree. And now, when I add a jitter of around 10 degree, now you can see that this fence does not appear straight, but this is going to appear like you have this ununiform structure like this. See, I can now click accept, and I will slightly move it and adjust it, and I am going to come here and I am going to rename this as fence underscore front. The next feature that I want to show you is, I can also modify the scale. I will come into create, I will take a box which is around 1 feet width, and depth is also around 1 feet, but the height is around 500. So, I have got a 500, select this, add it, and I am going to click accept, and I am going to call this as, press F2, and I will call it as scale pattern. I will come into my X form and I will apply a pattern, and this time I am going to select the linear pattern. So, I get a straight pattern like this. So, in this case, adjust the start and end scale. So, I can come into the end scale, and along the, that is height means Z, I can set the initial value to 0.1 and the end value to 1. All the three values have changed because I have set it to proportional. I will switch off proportional and I will keep 1, and I will change only the value along the x axis. So, now you can see how this pattern is going to work. See, now I can create a scale and create a pattern like this. I will click accept, and this pattern underscore 1 scale pattern, I will delete this scale pattern, and this pattern underscore 01 I will press F2 and I am going to call this as scale pattern. And similarly here we had created a new pattern of steps. So, I will delete this stairs pattern here, come up here and I will select this pattern and press F2 and I will rename this as stairs pattern. Actually, I wanted it to rise like this and come down. Okay, in that case, I have to remove some of the items here and I have to remerge it. So, then I can select it and I can use another feature here which is called as split. Split is exactly opposite of merge. So, if I select the scale pattern and if I click on split, immediately it shows all these in different colors, and if I click accept, you can immediately see this has been divided into 31 different patterns. And then I can select some of the patterns here till a particular point, say for example till the center. I will come front view and here I will select it the patterns till here. So, till here, and I am going to now press delete and remove it. Then I will come back into the perspective. Now, I have only the half of this. Now, I will select the remaining one here and entire thing I will select this, and if I click merge, this will get merged into one single object. Click accept and now see the entire thing has combined into one single object. I will press F2 and I am going to call this as scale pattern. Then I am going to select this and I am going to press Alt, drag it and duplicate it. Then I am going to rotate it along the Z axis by 180 degree. Then move it like this and I am going to combine both of them together like this. Then I will select both of them, click merge, I will click accept. So, it got merged into one single action. If I want to remove some of the blocks here which is going outside, I can again click here split and click accept. So, you have all this combined. So, I will select these 3, 4, 5 parts over here and delete it, and similarly I will come here and I will select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and I am going to now press delete. Then I can select all other here together and I am going to come here and choose merge, and I am going to call this now as scale underscore pattern and I am going to click accept. Whenever you are creating, say for example, I have created so many chairs, and if these chairs are a high polygon material, then what happens is as you load too many chairs in your game or in your scene, what happens is your scene might get slowed down. So, to improve the efficiency here, actually in Unreal we have this instance monitoring, and one of the feature here is harvest instances. So, when I click on harvest instances, now you can see every instance is blocked out like this. So, you can clearly see the instances are blocked out, and you have two options here: hierarchical here instant static mesh, non-hierarchical is called as ISM. Now, if you are using some material which is static, I can use the ISM, and if it has some animation we use hierarchical ISM, and I will use this default and I am going to give it the name now as chairs, and if I click accept, as of now here there is no change, but actually what has now happened is Unreal has now created these instances, and when you are loading and using this, it improves the performance, because all these have the same structure. Unreal is going to bake one structure and use it and repeat it as an instance, and this is a little complicated process which we will explain it later when we come into gaming. But here what harvesting does is, it is going to convert every instance into a stored baked information. And also you have another feature here called as ISM editor, means every instant static mesh can be edited. If I select ISM, see, I can select every instance here, and I can select this one instance and I can move it like this, or move it to the right, or I can just scale it down a little. So, like this I can make the modification and click complete. See, I can edit one single instant using this ISM editor. With this, we have today completed all the section related to XForm, and in our next section we are going to deal with the deform menu of our modeling in Unreal Engine. So, let us meet in our next session. Thank you.